Since the beginning of the full-scale invasion, the National Police of Ukraine has been performing not only its primary duties. According to the head of the Ministry of Internal Affairs, nearly 9,000 police officers are currently serving in combat units and carrying out tasks directly on the front line of engagement. All of them volunteered to go to the front. In Kostiantynivka, in the Donetsk region, our country is being defended, among others, by the combined assault brigade Lyut. And now joining us is the deputy commander of the brigade, Police Colonel Artem Lisogor. Mr. Artem, welcome.
Good afternoon, Ms. Olena. Greetings.
Mr. Artema, the American Institute for the Study of War reports that the armed forces of Ukraine have advanced in the Donetsk region near Kostiantynivka, Drushkivka. The Russian army continues its attempts to break through using tanks and drones. Tell us, what is the operational situation? What forces are the Russians deploying, and what can you tell us about all of this?
The most intense and challenging situation is in the Kostiantynivka district. It is extremely difficult but remains under control. The enemy is constantly attempting to break through the lines of the defense forces and the armed forces, who are standing shoulder to shoulder and defending Kostiantynivka, trying to infiltrate their forces into the settlements that precede Kostiantynivka itself, attempting to make breakthroughs in order, let's say, to encircle and block our forces. Despite the enemy's numerical superiority, the combined units of the brigade, personnel, and national police units, including the armed forces involved in this direction, are inflicting effective damage on both the enemy's infantry and equipment. In fact, regarding the enemy's tactics, in addition to adding the smallest possible groups for infiltration among our ranks, local assaults, as they say, have not been cancelled, and the enemy keeps launching them on a constant and relentless basis. They are deploying very significant forces of their infantry, their assault troops, in order to secure at least some position and get a little closer to Kostiantynivka itself.
Mr. Artem, a QR code appeared during our conversation with you. Could you please explain to our viewers, as I understand it, that this QR code leads directly to an application form if someone is interested in joining this particular brigade? Is that correct?
Of course, the Lyut brigade, like other units, is constantly expanding. We are evolving. For 4 years, the brigade has been fighting in all the hottest spots. And over these years, the experience has both provided the opportunity and created the need for this. At first in the medical battalion, which quickly gained momentum and now almost completely covers the front lines, providing medical support, carrying out evacuations, and giving aid to our wounded soldiers. Unfortunately, this applies not only to us but also to the soldiers of the armed forces of Ukraine. Therefore, of course, when such a large entity as a medical battalion is being formed, specialists are needed, including those with higher medical education, such as surgeons, anesthesiologists, and in principle the entire range, the whole spectrum of professions that exist, even including psychologists and therapists. Because naturally people get sick, it's winter, so the battalion is developing, and there is a need for such people. It's clear that the war is advancing and evolving, and it's no longer a viable option to just sit in positions and repel attacks with automatic rifles. A very large number of unmanned systems are being used, so the Lyut Brigade has established the Crew Unmanned Systems Battalion, which is currently recruiting new members. Our specialists are already serving there, and they have destroyed more than one enemy unit, both equipment and infantry. Energetic young people are always in high demand. We are joined by our active police officers, for instance, from other regions of the oblast who wish to serve in the assault brigade and protect and defend their homeland on the front line. The same goes for civilians as well. We are constantly recruiting, providing full training, and ensuring all necessary conditions, both in terms of salary and social benefits. That's why everyone who wishes to do so is invited to join and work together to destroy the enemy.
Mr. Artem, during these 4 years of the full-scale war, in which directions did the brigade participate, and where was it the most difficult?
It's impossible to say where it was hardest. It was both Bakhmut and Chasiv Yar. These are famous cities where the brigade held out for almost a year and kept the enemy at Donetsk, destroying large enemy forces. Several brigades that prevailed along with the armed forces. Kordyumivka. Our battalion was one of the very first to encounter the enemy in Vovchansk back in the year before last, but now the Konstantinovka strip is also steadily gaining significant momentum, let's say, just like other regions where the enemy is trying to launch massive and heavy attacks and squeeze out the armed forces. That's why, indeed, each of these sectors is important and each is very difficult. It's impossible to single one out separately. Unfortunately, on every sector, we have suffered losses, we've had wounded, but the brigade stands firm and fulfills its tasks in full.
And how has the enemy changed over these years? What can you say, first of all?
The enemy is not standing still either. The enemy is evolving. Their unmanned systems component has advanced significantly, because we constantly have to counteract, adapt, and develop entirely new means to destroy their drones, since their strike range and operational capabilities have increased. And of course, we have to switch to air defense systems to destroy the enemy. What we have been seeing over the past 2 months is that the enemy constantly replenishes our direction with mobilization reserves, but of course suffers very heavy losses and simply replaces some regiments and battalions because the losses are so great that it is impossible to continue operations as before. Of course, the enemy is evolving. You can never underestimate the enemy. If you underestimate the enemy, you lose the battle. That's why you always have to think one step ahead to see, using all available means, what the enemy is doing, how he is evolving, what he wants to do in order to accomplish the task set before him to capture the Donetsk region.
Mr. Artem, there are still a lot of civilians remaining in Kostiantynivka, despite the fact that the city is constantly and mercilessly bombed and attacked by the enemy. How do you communicate with them? How do you help them? Is it possible to help them just to survive in such terrible conditions? Under relentless and constant shelling.
Unfortunately, there are people who stay behind for various reasons, absolutely. These are people who, let's say, in their opinion, have nowhere to go within the country. We also have ongoing conversations with them. There is a diverse group of people. Unfortunately, to the enemy, I want to once again appeal to people that it is necessary to leave the areas of active hostilities when the enemy has already approached, because just yesterday, our medics had to risk their lives again because 3 civilians were trying to get out. The enemy struck with 2 FPV drones. Unfortunately, one of the civilians was killed and 2 were wounded. One was moderately injured, the other was in serious condition. The medics had to evacuate them from the line of contact at full speed from the center of Kostiantynivka, even risking their own lives, but they helped people and got them out. That's why we try to talk to people, urging them to leave, because the enemy doesn't care whether they're civilians, because if there are Ukrainian defense forces, they simply destroy anything that moves. There are absolutely no moral principles there whatsoever.
Mr. Artem, thanks for your service and thank you for joining our broadcast. Just a reminder, we have on air with us was the Deputy Commander of the Lyut Brigade, Police Colonel Artem Lisohorda.